What are we going to get into today? Well, let's check out, and I've made this before, but this one's a little bit different. But let's check out American single malt whiskey. Hey, what is it? What's the rules of it? And then we're going to make a American single malt mash. But first things first, welcome to Stillworks and Brewing. My name is Randy, and this is a channel that's all about home distillation and brewing. All right, let's get started. Okay, American single malt whiskey. Hey, what it is, it's all in the name. Let's start with the American. Okay, American, it's going to be a lot like, hey, your single malt scotch, but it has to be made in Scotland. Okay, so it has to be 100% barley. All right, it has to be distilled in the United States and distilled no more than 160 proof. Okay, coming off the still. It needs to be aged in the United States, and the barrel restrictions, unlike bourbon, bourbon you got to use a new charred white oak barrel. American single malt, there's no barrel restrictions. Okay, so you can use sherry barrel, use bourbon barrels. You can use, and one thing I'm going to do is I want to play with port, and you can use use port barrels. All right, and it needs to be bottled no lower than 80 proof. All right. So the next word in the title is single. Okay, and that refers to that, just like in Scotland, it refers to it is from a single distillery. Some whiskeys they take barrels from other distilleries, they blend it together to the taste they want, which is great. But in this case, it comes from a single distillery. And then the other thing is malt. All right, it's made from 100% malted barley. All right, now that is the name. So what is the taste of a single malt? Well, often described is an oaky, a woody, or a sweet, spicy flavors. Okay, so it can be all over. It can be made a lot of different ways, and we'll find that out. How I like to enjoy it, well, you can enjoy it neat. Of course, anything is delicious neat. Or a lot of people mix just a little bit of water with their whiskey and enjoy it that way. Or my favorite, I love one of them big old ice cubes, and then I like to pour the alcohol over that ice cube, and really that's the way I like to enjoy it. I like to let the ice melt just a little bit, so it's just that little bit of water brings out a lot of flavors. So hey, it's your choice, whatever you like. All right, so let's get started with this mash. All right. So what I did, and I did this the other night, is, let me get the ingredients. It's going to be 18 pounds of, this is a 2-row barley, all right? So I took half of it and I put it in the smoke box. And if I think about, I'll put the card up here how I made the smoke box so you can check that out. I can smell the smoke right through the bag. It smells delicious. So what I did is I smoked half of it. It was about 4 hours worth of smoking. And I didn't want to do it all because I didn't want too heavy on the smoke. So we're going to see. All right. Okay, so it's time to smoke our grains. And what I'm doing, let me remind you, is I'm going to smoke half the grain. So I'm using 18 pounds of 2-row barley, because that's what I have. And we're going to smoke 9 pounds of it. So we're going to smoke half. Okay, so what we want to do is let's get the smoke tube going. And like I showed you before, this is a smoke tube, and I filled it up full of the wood pellets like for a barbecue grill. Just take my torch and I'm gonna light that. Okay, now I'll just get that put in the smoke box. I'll probably give it another little. All right, so I already got 9 pounds weighed out. So I just want to put some on each tray. I got 4 different trays. One more. Okay, so now let's put our grain trays in here. Alrighty, and we'll just close it up. Alright, so all we got left to do is let the smoke box do its thing. I see smoke coming out of the top of it. Got a lot of great smoke flavor going on them grains. So now it's just wait and see. Alrighty, so we'll let that do thing. It should take right around 4 hours, I'm thinking, from now to by the time it cools down. Then we'll just bag that grain up and get ready to start making this single malt whiskey. All right. To let you know where we're at, I'm heating some water up in my brew pot, and I got all my grain is weighed out, and like I said before, I got 9 pounds of just a 2-row malt, and I got 9 pounds of 2-row malt smoked. All right, so what we got to do is we got to mill this. So let's put it in the my mill here. And this is basically just a roller mill, you know. Making single malt is, to me, because I do a lot of bourbon, which you got to cook the corn, you know, and you know, gelatinize, hydronize the corn. Then you got to a lot of stuff in there. This is, to me, is just like making beer. It's very similar. So, let's go ahead and that. All right, and I'll come back because this is noisy. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I got all my barley crushed, and that smell of the smoke is intense. I think it's going to give it a very nice light smoked. That smells so good. You can see all the barley has been milled up. It broke open, just exactly what we want to get them into them starches in that grain. Okay. All right. So as soon as my water heats up in my brew pot to about 160 degrees, we'll get started on the next step. Okay, so my water in my brew pot is 160 degrees, so I'm going to add some over into my mash tun. Now in my mash tun, I do have a nice false bottom. That will help in the sparging process. Okay, so let me dip over some of this hot water into here. The amount, I just want to be able to get my grain soaked. So I normally pump it over, but my pump's broke. All right, that'll be enough to start with. What I'm trying to do is I got 160 degree water. I know that temperature is going to drop when I put in my grain. What I'm looking for is temperatures 145 to 158-ish. And that's when the enzymes in the grain, in a malted grain, will convert those starches over into sugars, is of course what we need. All right, so let me start mixing the grain in, and then once I get it all mixed in, I'll be able to turn my heat belt on this mash tun. All right, so let me start mixing some of this in. Oh, it's a lot of grain. I know I will be needing more hot water. We just don't want no dough balls. Making some grain soup. And we'll need a little more water. Like I've said, I've made single malts in the past. I never did smoke them. And but I really enjoyed it. It is different than bourbon. I mean, it's all still in the whiskey family, but there is definitely a different taste to it. This is a 10-gallon pot, and it's going to be pretty much maxed out. Close. Did I say I wanted? I said I wanted somewhere in the neighborhood of 145 to 158. That's our magic temperature. temperatures. All right, so we got 156. I'm pretty darn happy with that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, just to help maintain that temperature, remember I got that heat belt? And that's going, I'm gonna set it to about, I don't know, 155, 156. Just try to maintain what I got, and I'll keep a check on it and stir it every once in a while. And then, so right now I can set my timer for 1.5 hours, okay? So I'm gonna put a lid on this, I'm gonna cover it up, and we're gonna let it do its thing for about 1.5 hours. So it gives me time to do some other stuff while I'm letting this 1.5 hours. I just took the cover off. So let's see what we got. The smell of that smoke is fantastic. I did check the temperature every once in a while. It's staying right where it needed to be. 156, 150, hey, that's perfect. All right, I did shut the heat off. All right, so let's do a little starch test. So what I do as a starch test is a little white dish, and what we want is a little bit of the liquid off of the grains, and you put it in that white dish, and you take a little bit of iodine, just the iodine you get at the pharmacy or whatever it is, and you put a drop or so in there. All right, and if I shake it, it just goes right back to the original color. If there was starch left in there, it would turn ink black, okay? So, with it turning back to the original color, that means our conversion has taken place. Put this up here before I spill it. Okay. So what's next? Well, next is we got to sparge this off. So let me get set up. We're going to sparge this into our fermentation bucket, and then we'll be ready. This is going to be some good whiskey. I hate to tell you that. But I have promised some friends some of this when it's done. So, okay. So let me get ready. So let's start sparging this off. Got a nice color liquid to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to batch sparge. So in other words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain this off. I'll put hot water back in this, and then I'll keep, I smell the smoke. This is going to be great. And then what I will do is I'll keep collecting until I get to my 6 gallon mark. This is very, very, just like making beer. I have to say that just working with grain is a whole lot easier than working with the corn. Corn is a challenge to work with, but I love the flavor of a bourbon. You all know I'm a bourbon person. I love bourbon. This mash tun is working really well for me. So once it's done draining, then I'll put some more hot water, give it a good stir, and let it sit for a couple of minutes, then we'll do this again. Okay, so I finished sparging over until I collected 6 gallons of mash. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to check the starting gravity. And remember, we've said this before, this starting gravity measurement is a very important data point that we need, and we'll use it later on. Plus, you want to know what you've done, and that's a data point that helps us know how we did with our grains and all. So let's see what we got. 1.082-ish, best I can read. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, now remember, if you were a little bit low, if you added a little bit of sugar to it, it would not hurt it. So don't be afraid of that. But I'm happy with this. The only other thing I need to measure is, let's measure our pH. pH is what's going to keep the yeast happy, I believe. 5.3. Yeah, it's settling. 5.3. I'm going to leave it right there. I ain't touching it. 5.4 is perfect. That's a good neutral. All right. Now, I know the temperature is a little bit warm for the yeast. I just know that. Yeah, it's 130, 135 degrees. That's a little bit too hot for the yeast. So you got two choices. You could either use a wort chiller of some sort, or you could take a block of ice that's in a plastic jug and start sanding it up good, put it in there, or just put it in your wherever you're going to ferment, come back later and add the yeast. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just add the yeast. I'll probably do it later this evening or early in the morning. And I'll put my yeast in and get it started. Okay? The aroma, I am very happy with the amount of smoke, flavor, or aroma I'm getting off of it. I know it's going to taste great. What else? I guess that's about it. All right. What are we going to do with this? Okay, the next step after fermentation is done, it's going to take 7 to 10 days. What I'm thinking about doing is taking some oak chips and I'm going to marinate them in some port wine. I did that one time before with an Angel Envy clone inspired whiskey that me and my son made, and it was fantastic. So I think it'll work really good with this. With this little bit of smoke flavor, that port, oh, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. All right, so what do we got? I guess that's about it. Oh, I guess the last thing I got to say is, hey, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time here on Stillworks and Brewing. This is going to be good.